All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning. My name is Amy Anderson. I'm the Director of AVID and Post-Secondary, and it's my pleasure to have this fabulous techie team all together in the same place. Who knows what we'll make happen today? So first, I just want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Tell us about your educational details and journey, your career, what you're doing currently, and what are some of those key responsibilities you have. So Curtis Rogers, we'll start with you.
Sure. So starting with my education, I have a bachelor's degree in military intelligence studies, actually. And my master's degree is actually in enterprise information systems. I'm currently the learning management system administrator at the University of Texas Permian. I also manage all the survey systems and all the syllabus systems. So basically all of our online education is what I manage. Additionally to that, I also do a lot of work in VR and 360 video recording. We do a lot of simulations, also geared toward online delivery. And so that's one of the really exciting things we're working with, doing a lot of high-end audiovisual type stuff like that.
All right. Miss Lauren Tavarez, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would love to. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I am Lauren Tavarez. I'm the Director for Instructional Technology with Ector County ISD. And tell people all the time that's very fancy for I help teachers teach with technology. And so I'm fortunate to have an awesome team that I get to work with. And we basically just support our teachers with their strategies and how to use the technology that we also are super fortunate to have access to now. And with all of our students having a device pre-K through 12th grade. And so we go and we help teachers know what tools are available, the best way to use technology in learning to help the students to be successful. So just thank you guys for having me.
It's our pleasure. Mr. Brad Shook, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. So hello, everybody. I'm Brad Shook. I am the current Vice President for Information and Technology here at the University of Texas Permian Basin. My master's is actually in business administration, and then my undergraduate is in computer science. And my background really actually came from healthcare. I was in healthcare for about 17 years, healthcare IT, and made the transition over to higher education about 2.5 years ago. And my role here at the university is to help lead the technology, help come up with the goals and strategies to make sure we're current, that we are doing the latest and greatest in our rooms and providing to all of the faculty and students and staff the technology that they need in order to ensure that they're relevant in this new training and digital age that COVID has helped launch. I mean, we're already in it, but COVID has really launched it forward now. Everything has to be remote. And, you know, if it wasn't for technology, a lot of businesses would have really struggled, you know, and especially education with teaching remote. So it's an exciting time to be in IT for sure. You know, some of the struggles that we've always struggled with is getting adoption of technology. You know, people like to resist. It's anything new. They want what's comfortable, right? So it's really been exciting for technology because people didn't have a choice. They had to adapt to the new technology in order to survive. So it's very exciting to be in technology right now.
Absolutely. We can definitely agree with you that if something good came out of COVID, it's the acceleration of our skills and the use of our technology. And last but not least, Mr. Brian Jones, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. I'm Brian Jones. I serve as the Director of Professional Learning here at Odessa College. I also oversee our LMS Blackboard. So we call that OC Global. So a lot of the online content delivery pieces I oversee as well. So I'm excited to join, but to give you a little bit of a background, I actually received my master's in music. And so I did music for the longest and then decided to go and to get my master's in educational leadership and administration to become a principal. So I was in ECISD about 2 years ago. So I'm excited to be able to join a community of technologists who are making impactful change in not just K-12, but also in higher education, as we were all thrust into a COVID environment. And, you know, the work that we do, just like we said at Odessa College, our work continues. So we had to retool, we had to reimagine delivery content, what that looked like to ensure that there's rigorous work occurring and that we continue that work. So I'm excited to be a part of this panel because I know great work is being done in the Permian Basin. So thank you. Of
course. All right. So we call today a career challenge. So you each have similar careers in the same sector, but you do very different jobs and you are in different sectors of the career sector. So it's kind of like that challenge, like our students will get to vote at the end about which career that they personally want to take on. So thank you all for being a part of that. To begin
an American Idol experience. So
kind of, yeah.
Vote for me.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So keep that in mind when you're answering these questions. There's no right or wrong, but you'll get a vote. So what is the very best part of your job? And this time we'll start with Lauren.
That one's easy for me. The very best part of my job is getting to be in classrooms with students and teachers to really see, honestly, both the excitement that happens when they're successful in using the technology. Brad said it perfectly. This is something that is not new. You know, technology has been available to classrooms for a long time, but I think in the last 18 months, we've all been forced and thrown into it, and it's required us to really work together to figure out how this happens. And so I have really, truly enjoyed in the last year being able to spend time in classrooms and talking to teachers, working with, getting feedback from students. You know, it's important. What do you enjoy? How do you like to learn? And when we truly focus on that, that's where we're going to be successful. And so all the time I get notes and emails and texts and from teachers just telling me, oh my gosh, I was able to do it, or hey, it worked. You said it would. I wasn't sure. And so it's just fun to me to get to continue to support people as they improve their skills to a point that, I mean, my hope is someday, you know, my job will just be totally reworked because teachers won't need us in the same way because they're going to have the skills and they're going to be really, really just empowered to be able to do it. But long story short, my absolute favorite part of my job is being able to be in so many different classrooms and then working with teachers from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade.
Okay. So there is a follow-up question for you, Lauren, and I'm going to let you in the chat. And okay. It says, can you share how technology is part of the experience in the classroom and how technology is an increasing part of all jobs and careers? And I'll let you think about that while everybody else tells about their best part. So, Mr. Rogers?
Sure. So my favorite part actually of my job here at UTPB is the freedom I have to innovate. I get to work on a lot of very innovative projects and not just in my own silo, but working with other experts in their fields. So for instance, I'm working on a project with education faculty to help people be comfortable using virtual reality technology that may have like autism, they may have different social anxiety issues, and this helps them to experience an environment virtually, all online, completely online, and gives them that confidence and the training that they might need to be successful in those environments. So that's one of the things I really enjoy. It's a lot of fun too to take a lot of different software packages like 3D modeling and integrate that with video and bring in the audio, the positional audio and stuff like that to create something that is a much greater product than any one of the software packages is able to actually provide on its own. So that's one thing I really like doing, and the fact too that I'm also LMS administrator gives me a lot of flexibility to test out things online that might otherwise be slightly more difficult. So it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting, bringing a lot of people to the table and just kind of letting their expertise help make the projects that much better.
Thank you. All right. So Mr. Rogers mentioned LMS, and Mr. Jones, you did as well. So why don't you follow up with that? What is the favorite part of your job?
My favorite part is seeing the spark in a faculty member's eye whenever they're able to adopt some type of technology. while we're talking about like technology accelerating processes, we also see it not just being a tool, but also a catalyst for change. Beyond us being thrust into this virtual world, we were already doing the work online with, Blackboard. And so as much as the LMS may change, a lot of the functionality is very similar. So we wanted to look at what we were doing and how could we bring in those high impact strategies into the online experience for our students. As an AVID demonstration site, we wanted to say, okay, can we connect with ECISD? Can we connect with AVID to figure out which tools we can use to make the experience better? Because we could always say, oh, we've got a discussion post, but how can we move past a static discussion post? We want to see video announcements. We want to see quality course components. We want to see that experience for our students be so dynamic where they're like, oh, wow, I had the best experience. There's transparency in the teaching and learning process, whereas across the board, there's always this, I don't understand. It's higher education should not be a daunting task. They should be given the skills and the tools that they need with, digital literacy. They should get those tools so that when they come to higher education, there is a marriage of the two. And so I'm excited to see the spark with our faculty, the spark with our students, so that we can have an engaging experience across the board, so that when they start here, they continue on, and we can ensure that persistency with our partnerships as well at UTPB, Texas Tech, and other higher education institutions as well.
Good deal. I'm going to give you an AVID sparkler for that.
Is that a round of applause?
A round of applause and AVID sparkler. So you just spark.
Nice.
All right, Mr. Frick, what is the favorite part of your job?
So mine's probably a little different than everybody else's.
Okay.
Mine is around the entrepreneurship with technology. Being in the position that I'm in, one of the main things I have to do is get people excited about technology. We've all heard that old saying, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And technology is the exact same way. I can have the best technology in the world, but if I can't sell it to the customer, they're never going to use it, and it just dies. I mean, think of BlackBerry. It's a great example. It was one of the best phone operating systems out there, and now it's not even on the market.
Before Apple.
They couldn't sell it. Apple destroyed them, right? Great sales stuff. So I really like going to the faculty and going to the different students and the staff and learning what they're doing, and then taking the technology that I've become accustomed to and showing them how it can help change their work life and sell it to them with all the new, and learn from them because they see things different than I see it. They're the ones doing the work day in and day out, and I just sometimes have to show them the possibilities, and they figure out ways to use the tool that I never even thought of. And kind of like what Curtis said, that's what's really neat about working in a university is we get so many smart students that come through here, and they're looking at things completely different, and next thing you know, you're like, wow, I would have never thought to use a 3D printer to print a ceramic bowl and then go fire it in a kiln. I mean, it's really a lot of fun.
Yes, working with our students and their brilliant minds often reminds us that we are not the only teacher in the room, but it's super exciting. So Lauren, do you have a great answer for how technology is part of the experience in classrooms and how it's increasing in all parts of the jobs and careers?
I do. I don't promise it's great, but here's what I've got, y'all. Honestly, I think, and so if you look at where we are in classrooms with access to technology today, compared to where we were, a year ago, year and a half ago. I mean, in the past, technology has been something that some students have had access to, depending on the school they were at, and the direction their school chose to go. It wasn't good or bad. And some had access, some did not. Now, all students, at least I'll speak for ECISD, we are fortunate for all students to have that device to learn on. And so it is becoming more and more a part of, you have no idea, y'all. But now, so it's important to think about and there's a great quote that I love, and just because you buy technology, if you don't have the professional learning and it's not used appropriately, all you have is a higher light bill. And I just love that because I think it's so true that now our next step is to go, you know, we've got the devices in kids' hands, and that is awesome. But how can we help teachers design learning and create learning experiences for students that use those tools effectively to prepare kids for their future? I mean, I think this panel is really neat because you look at the progression, we're all serving and supporting the same students. We're just starting from the ground up. And so I hope that that helps our, you know, all of our higher education friends feel a little bit better. Hey, we are taking this on, and we are taking it very seriously because we want our kids to be prepared for the future. And I would love to tell you I know what the future even looks like, but I'd be lying. You know, it changes so quickly. And so we have to really be proactive and reflective and creative about how do we build those skills in students to prepare them for something we don't really know what it's going to look like. You know what I mean? And so just building those, I call it digital fluency. I don't know if that's a real thing, but that's what I call it. Because to me, what that means is getting tools in students' hands to help them build those skills, to be able to look at a task, I need to do this, and knowing which tools they can choose from to be able to create something for a teacher to show what they've learned, or to tackle a task that, you know, maybe it's just going to help them be more time efficient. Knowing what tools are available to help them in both day-to-day life, because that's going to be, that's the world that we're raising them in. And I absolutely love that. But how do we help students be good at looking to see, you know, what do I need to accomplish, what's available, and what's the best way for me to get there? Because also too, the other challenge we have is what works for you, Amy, may not work for me. And so, you know what I mean? It's also how do we give them a variety of tools to choose from and pick appropriately to get them to where they're trying to go. So that's another thing that we're really working and hoping to support teachers, you know, effectively for them to also build those skills also. So that is students are not going to get away from this. This is going to be a part of their thing and where they're at. But I think they're also excited about that too. And I think that's something that encourages me.
I think to add to that, it's changed how we gather, how we access, how we analyze, how we transmit, you know, this information. And so technology has definitely become an accelerant. So the work that you are doing in ECISD is definitely, you know, helping us as well, so that when they transition on, that we've got those supports, those wraparound supports is what we call them. So we're excited for the work that you are doing too.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Anyone else have anything about how technology is increasing part of jobs and careers?
I definitely think that, I mean, it's integral to everything that you do anymore. There's not one job you can go do that doesn't involve technology, especially in this area. You know, the geologist has tools that they have to take out into the field. A engineer, when they're going in, they have to learn how to run CNC machines. You know, how do you run the water jets? How do you run the lathes? Everything is run by a computer nowadays. The healthcare, same way. Everything has some type of computer interface. I mean, technology is, if you can't run technology, you know, you're really going to struggle in the future. And, you know, that's what's really neat about the evolution of education and that technology coming into the classroom. So, you know, at UTPB, where the students are getting hands-on training in the technologies. So when they go out into the field, you know, it's on their resume, they know how to use it. And, you know, it's, you know, all but guarantees a job when you graduate from the university, because you've got those skills that you need to go in and do these positions.
Kind of adding on that a little bit, I think one thing that's also really important, especially when you're introducing technology to faculty and students, is I've always liked to help them understand how things work. Rather than, you know, I could teach someone how to do Photoshop, for instance, but for me, it's a little bit better to explain, here's how some of the features of this program work, like resizing and image manipulation, those kind of things, because they may be presented in the future with a different software package. And so if they've learned the theories behind how a particular classification of software technology works. If they're presented with something in the future that they've not seen before, something new, that's the big one, is something new, they'll have a good foundational knowledge of how to move forward with it. And they won't feel stuck because they knew how to run this one thing really, really well. And so with a lot of the projects, and when I'm doing training for different people on different tech and software, that's one thing I always try to keep in mind is, how do I future-proof you a little bit where it concerns what you're learning from me? And so that's a philosophy I've carried with me for the 20 plus years I've been in education so far. So, and it served me quite well. It's really helped people move as technology progresses.
I love that. I'm going to start future-proofing my own children. I love that saying.
And you know, it's not just all standard jobs. You know, Curtis, he hasn't mentioned it yet. You know, he's working with some faculty in these, you know, the special education sector, to where you can take singing, and with singing you can play Minecraft, and you can build 3D objects and print them out on a 3D printer. You know, so different mediums on how you can interact with technology. You know, for not everybody has the ability to use their arms and hands. You know, so how do you interact with those people that cannot? And so that's really neat to see those types of technologies evolving, and you get to go over and listen to Curtis sing horribly and build a Minecraft world.
You need me to sing for you, I can take your place.
Yeah,
I was a blues singer for a long time, so I got it. But yeah, Brad's exactly right. I mean, and it really goes with what I was saying earlier about taking software packages that don't seem related and putting them together. So we actually do quite a bit with Minecraft for education here at the university. Some of our arts classes use it. And one of the things it's actually able to do now is it is essentially a 3D modeling application. A lot of times when you say 3D modeling, they're thinking 3D Studio Max or Maya or something like that. But Minecraft is very good at it. So the interesting thing is my 7-year-old nephew is quite good at 3D modeling with the software package he's familiar with. Now, the upside to that is we can also export things from there. And like Brad said, we can send them to 3D printers. And so the neat thing, and to kind of talk a little bit about what that project is we can take somebody who is potentially quadriplegic, but does have control of their voice and is able to sing. And they can actually, because of an interface that we've developed here at UTPB, they can actually control Minecraft well enough to build objects that can then be printed in metal, in pottery. We can do them in several different mediums, and then we can also do casting. So we're taking a very old technology. Lost wax casting has been around since the Bronze Age. And so we can take that and have students build things in Minecraft that have never been able to physically build something in their life, and come out with the final product to literally, that could make their lives better, something that maybe their experience has been, if I could only have this thing, it would help a lot in my daily challenges. Or even something as simple as like, hey, Mom, here's something I actually physically made, if they've never been able to do that. So that's what I'm saying. That's why we look at packages, not as like, this is the only thing this one thing does. It's like, this can contribute this to this project, and so can this. And that's the same attitude we take with faculty and staff here at UTPB. It's like, all these people have the different expertise. Let's gather them all together and let's make this thing happen. So
I like what you mentioned about the transfer and the fact that, hey, you're learning this piece, but there's application in other areas as well. And so we think about that at OC all the time. Even, the spark, going back to that, whenever students are creating that positive affect, okay, before you probably never imagined that you could create something. So now we have a fab lab to allow our community to come in to make those 3D models. Oh, I've never thought I could use a CAD program to create something, and now they are. So I love the fact that the work is continuing in the technology integrations, not just being within a specific discipline, but figuring out, okay, you may not have access to, Adobe Photoshop, but what about Canva online? What about other applications that will allow, the digital editing? And so I think that's what we do in higher education, is say, you know what, here is a design, here are multiple avenues or different, ways to be able to show that you know how to do those things. So we talk about that all the time. And I like the fact that at UTPB, a lot of our thoughts are similar in that we need to make sure that there's transfer so that not only when they start here, that a lot of the skills that they learn here will be applicable to the fields down the future as well. So those sparks are so essential.
I absolutely love the positive energy and growth mindset, or might I say innovative mindset, that this group shows. Thinking about those type of things, especially a growth mindset, I am sure that each of you have faced some challenges. So could you talk to us about some of those challenges that you faced, how you overcame it, and then also what are some challenges within your position or in the technology world? And so Mr. Shook, we'll begin with you, if that's okay.
Sure. So the challenges that I face really is along with the same thing I'm excited about, entrepreneurship. Getting our users, and I'll just use that term very generally, which could be students, faculty, staff, to adopt and use the new technologies or see the value add. Because if they don't see the value add, they're not going to use it. Prior to COVID, just what we're doing now through Zoom, it wasn't done a whole lot. A lot of people wanted to meet in person. They didn't want to do online video conferencing. They didn't see the value add in the majority of what they did. And, so my job is to have to go in and say, this really is a value add. Here's how it can enhance the business versus, be a hindrance. And so it can be very challenging. People get stuck in their ways. They've always used a typewriter and they're never going to switch away from the typewriter, right? And you've got to convince them, well, a computer is better because I can save the document. I don't have to, if I can do spell check and correct versus just having to use whiteout, right? That's a very basic example, but we deal with that on a daily basis with the technology. And the challenge can be even in the classroom with faculty. They're very comfortable with their teaching style and what they're teaching and how they're teaching. And then we bring in a new video interactive environment that says, oh, now your students can connect with their phone. And then, the first thing they're thinking is, why in the world do I want their phone to connect to our video equipment? And, to sell why it's good and that there are controls right in place, but so selling can be a challenge as well as a motivation to the position.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, would you like to add?
Thank you for, as he was talking, I was sitting there thinking about a bunch of things. I remember when I was in college a long time ago, I'm pretty old, but we had online classes. And at the moment when no one was teaching online, and now that I'm on this side of higher education, I was told that there had to be stipends and additional incentives in order for teachers to decide to teach online, because again, we don't do that in higher education. Or I would even hear comments about, oh, where'd you get your degree from some online school? And now it's the thing now. And so I think about that back in the day, and just the fact that in order for there to be a diffusion of the innovation, someone had to be innovative, and that technology allowed that to happen. We're talking about open access to textbooks and how they're not affordable. So why not think about, we've got faculty members who are content experts. We have practitioners within their fields. Why not use UNESCO's model to create OER content, open educational resources? Oh, we've got to give a stipend for that. We've got to do all these things, but why not, disrupt some of the status quo to say, you know what, I want to do things differently. I want college to be affordable. And if we need to get our faculty members here to start creating their content and developing their own textbooks, we're going to be the leaders in that effort. And so again, it's new. A lot aren't doing it right now, but I want, on our side, I want us to be the leaders in saying, you know what, we went in and we disrupted that model, and now we have free textbooks for all of our students. And so even with technology, as we've seen the massive migration, someone was on the forefront. Someone was saying, you know what, I'm not okay with where it is now. And so what can I do to exact that change? And so for me, I think the toughest part would be thinking ideas. What are we doing now? How can we make this process better? How can we look at this differently? We know you may be a laggard with technology adoption, but how can we get you on board? And so there has to be a bit of support beyond I'm the sage on the stage, but let's collaborate together in order to form a community of practice, whereas we're all talking about it, whereas we're all seeing where we are and where we need to be. And at that point, when you get that group think, it's so cool to be able to say, oh, wow, I talked about that last year, but I've got all of these people chattering about it. I hear the buzz. Oh, we need one-to-one in our schools. Oh, wow, they're doing that in other cities. But guess what? ECISD is doing it too now. So we're doing all this stuff. And it's because we've got a community of people that say, you know what, we're going to disrupt the status quo and we are going to be on the forefront of innovative change. And so that's what I'm excited to see. Being new to higher education for sure has been interesting. And I deal with people who have PhDs, medical doctors, and I'm sure across the board in higher education, there may be some disequilibrium with this, I'm sorry, just kind of stuttered, disequilibrium with some of those pieces, but it's so unique when we have shared values, visions, you know, it all comes together. So I'm excited to be a part and to be able to see the change and that spark is what I'm after.
Thank you. Mrs. Tavarez, what are the challenges that you face?
Should we have, it helps me to hear that other people have similar challenges. And so I'll echo everything that's been said, but an additional one that comes to mind for me is also, how do we build those supports and structures for teachers that are at such different ends of the spectrum in technology use? And so we have teachers that have always just led the way on their own, just had that spark, just naturally interested in using technology in their teaching. And so we've actually leveraged a lot of those as in our district to help us support other teachers that are needing help. And because we also have to provide supports for those teachers that have been a little more hesitant and have not, don't have a lot of experience using technology in learning. And so how do we use our team and build those supports available for, trainings and virtually and face-to-face and, depending on what we were able to do at any point throughout this journey. Because I always really like to be very intentional about providing opportunities for people that are a little more hesitant. I just need to get started. Just keep me here, help me, and with that support, but also pushing those teachers to excel and grow that are leading the group and, already are accelerated in their use. How can we challenge them and help them to grow as well? And so that's been, I call it a challenge, but honestly, it's been one of my favorite parts about the last 18 months, because we've had a huge opportunity to look at how we've always done things and how are we going to change that, because our teachers need us and our teachers need that help. And so support is a big thing for me. We can provide the resources, we can provide the professional learning sessions you can come to, but how do we help teachers really take that and put it into action in their classroom and get that feedback to grow? So that's a challenge, but I typically take the challenge and turn it into the opportunity as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Amy, I'd like to add something. In one of the conversations we had with the Aspen Institute recently, I shared that we had individuals from ECISD come and present on some of the strategies used in the classroom. And so their comment was, it's typically the reverse. It's typically the university is going to K-12, but I think that relationship should be a reiterative process, whereas everyone's working together. And that's why I wanted to say that, because again, UTPB, OC, the partnerships that we have, ECISD, in the past it was okay, university, go to K-12, but now you all are at the table and you are all sharing too. So we're one family, and I'm excited to share that too. So
yes, we're excited as well. Mr. Rogers, do you want to add anything to the challenges that you face in the technology sector?
Sure. Over the years, there've been a few different challenges, but one in particular kind of stands out. It's anytime you show a new technology, like it's one thing to show people how we can do something really amazing. Like I could take your course and we could put it in a 3D modeled virtual environment, and students could learn how to do chemistry lab safety before they even come to class. So that way, when they come in the lab, they're not doing things that might be dangerous, or you don't have to spend a lot of time doing some of the things that you can put the classroom to do. So one of the things I think is really important is to get faculty buy-in on things. Is a lot of times you just have to show them what they can do to make it almost easy on themselves. And so it's important. One challenge I have in my job is to always remember my end user and think about what devices do they have. Now, I was a web designer back in 2001. Okay, and so back then you had to really think about what devices and internet connection and a few things we don't have to think about so much anymore. But the nice thing about having that happen to me so early in my career is it always made me think about what is the end user able to do. It's one thing if I've got an Oculus Quest 2 and I'm able to do some really neat things that I've been able to develop, but what can my students do? What in the classroom, if I show an instructor how to do something, what are the students going to be able to have the capacity for? And so always remembering, what your end users are going to be able to do with what you produce, even if it may be, the neatest thing, is always kind of in the back of my mind. And I always try to make sure that whenever I do produce something like that and teach others to do it, that they understand that, we need to make sure that this works on a phone, that kind of thing. So that's just really the biggest challenge, especially when it concerns buy-in and things like that, is thinking about your end user that may have the middle of the road technology or something like that, and not leaving anybody behind.
All right, thank you all for sharing and being transparent with our students. So thinking about our students, hearing about the best parts of your job, the challenges that this type of field might create, what are some skills that they should be working to develop and understand to utilize all the technology that you're talking about? And what skills do you continuously develop? I know that y'all have been talking about a future that kind of is undefined. How do you stay on that cutting edge? And Mr. Rogers, we'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, so in my field, I learned Photoshop when it was version 5.5, okay? So we're talking 1998 at this point. I would say that of all the software packages I've ever learned where it concerns doing animation, 3D modeling, design, and those kind of things, what we now would call the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite would be imperative to learn. The thing about it is, though, is like sometimes Creative Cloud can be expensive. And so there are some really, really good alternatives for doing video and graphics and those kind of things. But one thing I think is important is always try to figure out what the industry is using and do your best to learn that. A lot of people have access to things like Photoshop. And there's a lot of great resources on YouTube and things to learn from there. Another thing that's really helped me quite a lot, especially doing 3D animation and now working with VR and AR, is 3D modeling. I also learned that very early in the late 90s, and that's helped me immensely because it gives you a good understanding of perception and things like that. And one thing I would say is that things like, that you may think don't matter so much as you're going through them, like when am I ever going to use geometry and those kind of things. Some of that stuff becomes very, very important whenever you start getting into doing things with software like that. And so that's, that really for me, that's where one of the things where the professional development comes in, is just staying on top of the software packages. Try to figure out, see where the industry is heading and continue to move forward like that.
Thank you. Mrs. Tavarez, do you want to follow up with that? What do you feel like is most important for our students to know and understand to utilize these technologies?
Honestly, for me, something that I see working with the many people of all different ages is just to get yourself involved, practice using, understanding you're not going to break it. Most often the teachers that I work with that are the most hesitant, that's their biggest thing. They're like, I'm gonna mess it up. I don't know what to, I mean, find the undo button first. Figure out how, if you, in anything with technology, you're not gonna break it, but really just getting yourself a practice using the different technology tools that your teachers are going to be putting in front of you. Because it's been mentioned a couple of times, if we can really build those skills with our students, and just get them brave enough to try, and give them many different experiences also. And so Curtis talked a little bit about helping people develop the skills to understand why you use something. It's also really important. I want to add to that. We find all the time that we know how to use something very, very well. We're very comfortable with something, and then that product will run an update, and you'll get on the next day and it's changed. And you know what I mean? No one gave you the heads up that that was going to happen, but just being comfortable enough to say, that's different. You know what I mean? Let's figure out why. And so I get YouTube. I totally echo on that one. I use YouTube all the time to learn how to do things. If I'm not sure how to do it, I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, and they'll ask me, well, Mom, did you Google it? So I'm raising them right. And there's a whole world of information. It's just knowing where to go to access it, and to be responsible in accessing also, but just being willing to try it, and trusting that, you may mess it up, but you can always go back and undo that.
Good advice. Mr. Sturt, do you have something to add?
Sure. So probably the number one I would say is, continue your education. It is extremely important. As an employer, whenever I'm looking at hiring new staff, whether it be a business analyst, a computer technician, server network analyst, there's a couple of things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for education. It doesn't really even matter what field it is. I'll hire people with art degrees, communication degrees, history degrees. It doesn't really matter, because as an employer, what I'm looking for is someone who's going to come on that I know can learn, that has that aptitude and can come in, learn what to do, OJT, on the job training. Because it's always changing, and I can't expect my staff to know everything all of the time. It's just not reasonable. So the key thing is continue your education, and then outside of the school, go look for what interests you. Look for those trade articles. If LED lighting interests you, okay, now you might think that's a funny topic to say, but LED lighting interests me. So I'll be reading articles about how people are using LED lighting in healthcare to quiet down staff in a ward. So it starts getting loud, a noise detector detects it, and then the lights dim by themselves. People naturally get quiet when lights get dim. So that's one way LED lighting is being used, in healthcare. How you use it for navigation. You walk into a building, and you have an app on your phone. You say, I need to go here. And then it uses the lights in the ceiling that are already there to navigate you to find your way. There's really interesting ways that you can use this technology, but I wouldn't know those things if I wasn't out there looking at these trade magazines, just reading articles that looked interesting. On your phones, I know you've all got the news feeds. It's just part of them now. Select technology or select whatever you're interested in, and read those articles, see what people are doing out there. That's how you're going to find what interests you and what gets you excited. Because at the end of the day, if you're not excited about what you're doing when you go to work, you're going to dread it. But if you're excited about what you're doing, then every day is going to be a new adventure.
I would agree to that. Mr. Jones, do you have anything to add to tell our students about your recommendations to understand and utilize the technology that we're talking about today?
I think it's more so being unafraid to take risks, because like what was said earlier, you can't really break anything. I know recently my master bedroom shower, I broke the handle. And so I called in a plumber. The guy was suggesting that we cut out the panel of the sheetrock to get access to it. And so my fear was, okay, if I were to try to do this on my own, I would take off the handle and water would just gush out, and it would just be worse, because I've never had to turn off my water before. And so when he was there, he showed me how to turn off my water. And so he took the handle off, and I was able to see that, okay, what I assumed wasn't actually correct. And so when he did that, I was able to go to YouTube and I found a video on how to replace the cartridge for my Moen faucet. And so for me, I was like, oh, wow, everyone's on YouTube. Why didn't I think about going to YouTube first? He was going to try to charge me, even though he didn't really do anything. But for me, I would say with technology, don't be afraid to take those risks, because as much as technology is evolving, there is a new update. There is a new operating system. I just updated mine yesterday for my Mac. So the look and feel is a bit different. I had to change cameras because there was a little conflict that occurred earlier. But as you are adopting technology with those changes, when you approach it from the growth mindset, when you say, you know what, I don't know it right now, but I'm about to figure it out, you will be well positioned to be successful. With technologies changing, with emerging technologies coming about, once you understand how those applications work, there is a bunch of transfer. And so again, for me, it's not taking those risks and being open to change.
Okay, so we do have 2 questions. I'm going to give you the first question so you can have a little bit of time to think, and then I'll give you the question that we're going to spend a little time on before you answer that one. So the question that I want you to think about is, if you were asked to give a 1 word of advice to a new high school graduate, so our 2021 seniors are about to graduate and be on their way in their post-secondary journey, what 1 word of advice would you give to them about figuring out what to do next? So be thinking about that one, okay? But right now, in a post-COVID world, we've talked about how COVID has accelerated our understanding of technology, our need for technology, our applications of technology. And we've also talked about how very fast that it's moving and how to keep up. But what great opportunities has this opened up for our students and their careers in a world that is just waiting for them? Who would like to answer first?
I can jump in on that.
Okay.
So probably what I see the largest opportunity that's opened up is now you can get a job anywhere in the world. Before, everybody wanted you in the office. We say everybody, not everybody, but 98% of the businesses wanted you there in the office, whether it made sense or not. People have now discovered, right, what we've been telling them for all along. You can work from home. You can work remote. There are technologies that allow you to do that. And so now whenever I'm looking for a new business analyst, I'm not bound to hiring somebody in Midland and Odessa. It's good, but it can also bring more challenges. But that is a huge advantage to staff, because if you want to live in Hawaii and work on the beach, that's actually possible now, right? You can go there and get on your Zoom or your Teams calls and work remote. So I'd say that's one of the big advantages.
Thank you. That's great to get our minds whirling around. Mr. Rogers, did you want to go next?
Yeah, I would really echo what Brad said. In a lot of the positions I've held over the years, like LMS administration, web design, those kinds of things, instructional design. Working remotely was always something we had talked about for a long time. It's like, I could do my job just as effectively from home as I can here, and so I think the one thing the last year taught was that in fact is true, that it is something that does work on the whole. I mean, it's not suited for absolutely everything. I mean, there are always going to be people who need help with a device, that need actual physical help with things, and so that there's always going to be a need for that. But I certainly think that the last year has shown that, one other thing that I think was nice is it also showed too that faculty were willing to adopt the learning management system a lot more than they had. Our faculty used it quite a lot already, but some of the ones that had been resistant were no longer resistant, almost out of need. But once they started using it and started realizing how easy it was and the training that we had available to them to get good at it, the buy-in went way high. And now we have faculty that are like asking if they really have to teach face-to-face again. So the pendulum has swung in the other direction, and we're glad to see that. And it's going to be interesting to see where we head with that momentum into the future.
All right, Ms. Tavarez?
I think our opportunity really honestly is just, especially speaking from the pre-K to 12th grade world, is that we have it. And so it's something that I really am excited for our students, because in the past, like I said, it really depended on, where you went to elementary school or where you went to middle school. If your campus was a campus that allowed access to technology and learning on a device. And so now that with the support, I have to make sure to mention, with the support of our community. And so it's something that our district was able to accomplish because of the support from our community and from our state. But I really think that is the opportunity, that our students have access to the technology. And so we're able to put learning in front of them that's going to better prepare them for the world that they're heading towards.
Yes, I love that you are talking about this opportunity for students. And it also starts framing their mindset that it's not just for consumption. It's not just for entertainment, but that we are creating with that. So it gives them a completely different perspective of the use of technology. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, and my thoughts are within the same vein. I feel that we've changed our perspective from it being about what faculty needs are to more of what's best for students. And so I know that those conversations, we've had them before, we've talked about wraparound supports, but COVID thrust us into an environment where we had to think a little bit differently. Our instructional designers had to work to, okay, we've got more students in an online setting. What can we do? What strategies, what tools? And so a lot of individuals going to Zoom was a new experience. So how can we support them in that transition? So I think it was more so the hierarchical systems. We had to look at things differently to say, okay, where are the students? What do they need? How do we support them so that, because they are thrust into this environment, how can we make sure that the learning continues? So that was more so for us, as those technologies were already there. Zoom was already around, functioned really well. Microsoft Teams was already around, but it was more so, how do we leverage these technologies to serve the needs of our students?
All right. Thank you all so much for your nuggets of wisdom. We are going to put up the poll. And so if you have joined us online, then the poll will be there. And as we end, so as we're going out, the last thing that you will give is your best advice to our 2021 graduating seniors. Who wants to give their word of advice first?
Fearless.
Be
No
fearless.
Fear. Go 100%. Just do it. Don't think that no is the first answer that you're going to get from somebody until they actually have told you no. And if they tell you no, continue, figure out a way to get it done.
My
Great
word
advice.
would be to create, to make it your own, whatever your experience is, just create something. If it's music, if it's art, if whatever it is, you create it and make it your own.
I think mine would be enjoy. So both of those things that were said, find something you enjoy and enjoy the process. And so even like Curtis said, even if you're told no, enjoy that and take something from that and learn from it and figure out what you can do different next time. Because if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, go a different direction, but just enjoy the process and enjoy where you're at in life. Because all of a sudden you'll end up old like me and wonder how that happened so fast.
I'm old.
Let's sum it up in one word, it would be do. I think Nike did it real well in 3 words. Just do it in 3 words. Doesn't matter what you do, you just need to start doing something and you're going to find your path. You're going to find what you enjoy and that's the way you'll you'll gravitate towards, especially when you start in higher education. You find that mentor, find that faculty you just connect with, find senior students that you connect with. What are they doing? And just do something. And through just doing, you will craft your future.
Right. Great words of advice. So, and guys, so this has actually not happened before, but y'all have all tied. So we'll have to come back for round 2 at another time, because I'm sure in just a few months, there'll be a whole new thing to talk about in technology. So congratulations to you all.
Yay.
Yeah.
I kept thinking I was misunderstanding, and I was like, but who's the winner? And they're like, no, everyone's the winner.
We all get a prize.
Yes, and I think that probably this also happened this way because it was amazing how quickly all of you came together as a team and all came together complementing one another, building off one another. And so I think that that's a great example for what our students should do, especially as they're entering into that post-secondary journey. Because if we want to be successful, we often are not successful just on our own. So it takes a team. So I appreciate you being part of our team today. Yes, Mr. Shook?
I was just going to say, and kind of along those, what a lot of people don't see in the background, like we're working with Odessa College. We've got programs that transfer. We're working with our education department to make sure that we're training teachers. So whenever they go over to Lauren, they're already in the similar environments. That collaboration between us is just so important. And we all love working together, right?
I would agree to that. I have worked with most of you and look forward to working with you more in the future. Thank you so much for being with us today and spending a little time educating our students about the work that's being done in our community, the work that you do individually, and encouraging